Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Audible, Podcast Addict, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have 4 amazing guests for you today. First up, Julia Cook and Dr. Michelle Borba. They'll be here to celebrate I Got This. Later in the show, we'll be meeting Sally Kashner. She's celebrating Cora's Christmas Challenge. And last but not least, we'll be welcoming Dottie Lee into the show to celebrate Frances Flamingo, prima ballerina. This episode is brought to you by Daphne Draws Data. From the imaginative mind of best-selling author Cole Nussbaumer Knaflick and the vibrant illustrations of John Skewers comes a story that will captivate kids and grown-ups alike. Daphne is not your ordinary dragon. She doesn't breathe fire. She breathes life into numbers, turning them into pictures that solve mysteries, forge friendships, and save the day. Daphne's journey celebrates unique talents, the power of teamwork, and the beauty of seeing the world through a different lens. This dragon's tale is perfect for parents and educators to inspire the next generation of curious minds and innovative thinkers. Get your copy today. Daphne Draws Data. My friends, we are in for a treat. Our guests are here today to celebrate their brand new book. It's called I Got This. Please welcome to the show Dr. Michelle Borba and Julia Cook. Dr. Michelle, how are you?
I am so fine, and thank you for this. This is going to be so fun. There's nothing better than talking to parents about how to raise bounce-back, resilient kids in an uncertain world.
I love it. And Julia, how are you doing?
I'm great. I can't wait to be a part of this. Thank you very much for the invite.
You are welcome. Why don't we start with you, Dr. Michelle? Talk to us a little bit about who I Got This is for.
Well, it's ideally for younger children, but it could be any age. We're talking from any age child who likes to sit down and listen to a parent or a teacher read to them. But it could be up to 5th and 6th grade, though I was just telling Julia that I've had teachers have high school kids read it to younger kids because the message is so important, and it's the way that the high school kids gets it as well.
You know, I am a big fan of sneaky parenting and sneaky teaching. Not so much that you're sneaking around behind their back, but doing those little tricks. Like I always volunteered to drive the kids around. I had a big minivan, and I'll drive, and I'll just get up in the front of the van, keep my mouth shut, and I learned all about what was happening in school.
You know, the same thing happens when you read a book to a child, because all of a sudden now they're hearing about a different character. It's actually a concept called bibliotherapy, an amazing ancient technique where a child steps into the shoes of another character who's suffering from the same kind of problem as he is. He opens up, and if a parent's non-judgmental and listens, and a dialogue is unbelievable. And now you can help your child be able to figure out, how do you handle those challenging problems and bounce back?
Yeah. Julia, why did you folks write I Got This?
Well, in order to teach kids, you have to enter their view of the world. And a children's book is a great way to do that. So if you write a book that has great people skill tools inside of it, and then you read it to your child, and then it's read to a child, the people who read it get those messages, like you said, but then also the kids get those messages because they identify it. These days, our kids, to learn something, they need to see it, hear it, feel it, do it, relate it to something they already know, and demonstrate it to somebody else. And so if they can identify with that character in the book, that's magical. I got this theme. Michelle is a guru when it comes to teaching people about resilience and kids how to thrive. And so we took her concepts out of Thrivers and turned it into kid words in a way that you could read first person to a child, and then they could identify with, oh my gosh, I have superpowers. I can learn superpowers. Because our kids, when things get tough, they seem to quit. Oh, I can't. And this book takes the T out of can't for kids.
You know, when I launched Reading with Your Kids back in 2017, we talked a lot about parents wanting to bubble wrap their kids and prevent them from feeling any kind of disappointment, any kind of bump or a scrape, and it's not realistic at all. I was asked to coach my son's soccer team back when he was a little one, and I was recommended because I had coached a very competitive team, and I was the wrong person to ask to do this because they didn't keep score and all that other kind of stuff. And I would try to be positive with the kids and say, come on, guys, and they go, oh, we lost, we got killed. And it's like, no, you didn't. We don't keep score. And it's like the kids are, we keep score. We keep score. So I'm happy that you are talking to kids about being resilient. Are we seeing a reversal? Are Dr. Michelle, are parents more willing to let their kids experience those bumps and bruises that are so vital to grow up?
Unfortunately, no. And if you do parent, then go give yourself a spa treatment, because what is happening is when you bubble wrap your child and halt him from having any kind of a challenging experience, what you actually do is rob them of resilience. And resilience is what they're going to need the rest of their life in a very uncertain, unpredictable kind of a world. So it doesn't mean you're going to throw them into the deep end without giving them the skills of how to swim a little bit, but you are going to help them so that when a challenge comes, give them that, what Julia just said, that can kind of a feeling. I got this. I can do it. What we're also doing is waiting too late to teach these skills. These are teachable skills. And what Julia and I wanted to do was just create a book. I got this, does it? When it's about a little puppy dog who wants desperately to be to help out the world and having challenges along the way. So his friends buckle in, help him learn some bounce back skills. And on the way, these are the same skills that every child is going to need as well. So let's start teaching them now, and it'll help their mental health and stress as well.
Well, I'm happy that you brought up mental health, because it seems like we're in a real crisis. The idea that there are so many kids out there suffering from anxiety and other mental health issues. I knew there were kids when, granted, I'm almost 100 years old, but back when I was a kid, there might be one or two kids who went to see the guidance counselor, but not the majority of kids in my classroom. And it seems that that's what's going on right now. There's a huge amount of kids who are having these challenges.
That's why it's so important that when the kid walks into the classroom, they form a relationship with that teacher, and that teacher makes those kids feel seen, heard, and validated. Because if we get in a slump where we're teaching stuff to our kids, that's not going to help them. But if we are teaching our kids stuff and we put their needs and their human being needs ahead of everything else, everything we teach kids is less important than those kids themselves. So, that this book just kind of wraps all of that together, and we have to raise our kids that when good things happen, when they do good things, good things happen to them, and they have to be ready to go out into the world where everyone's not going to love them and bubble wrap them like we are. They have to bounce back. We don't want them to be holiday ornaments. We want them to be pool balls. So when they take a hit, they bounce off in the pool ball. If you hit a pool ball with a rock, it stays the same. It bounces off. If you hit a holiday ornament with a rock, it shatters into a million pieces.
What a great analogy.
I mean, our kids are really pretty on the outside and they're hanging by a thread, You've got to give them that inner strength, and we've got to teach them how to validate from the inside out. You don't tell a child now, I'm so proud of you. That's external validation, because when they're online, they're getting validation from the inside out based on what they see. So you have to say, oh, Michelle, I'm proud of you, but I can only imagine how proud you must be of yourself. I bet you're doing a happy dance the size of Texas. What does it look like? And so all of a sudden then Michelle goes, oh yeah, I am feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
And this book about Back Superpowers, it gives kids and adults the strategies they need to look at a problem and say, okay, what do I do with it? Because challenges and out of our comfort zone is the only way we grow. No one grows in a comfortable environment. No one. You have to be uncomfortable to grow.
Yeah.
That's one reason when we read this book, we stop at each one of the 6 superpowers and we practice it with the child. And we keep practicing and practicing. The first one is when you come up to a challenge, you take a deep breath because you can't think when you're out of control. So challenge number 1 on superpower is just breathe. And that's what the eagle's going to teach Charlie, the dog. Just take a deep breath because it's going to help your brain start to think, and then you can come up with answers of how to solve your problem. Take a deep, slow breath, which you would then tell your child. Let's do it just like Charlie. Take a deep, slow breath, go deep, 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 real low in your tummy. Like you're riding up an elevator. Do it with your child. When it comes to the top, now slowly let it out. So your exhale is twice as long as your inhale, or you can go pull a flower and say, blow the flower. Now, exhale your breath. And if you practice that, not just when you're reading the book, but little moments throughout the day, that's how you learn resilience. It just isn't a one-time talk about it. It's daily practices until your child can do it without you. That comes your moment when you say, we got this one, let's go on to number 2. Number 2 is brainstorm. There's lots of different solutions inside your head, sweetie pie. You just got to come up with one more way that you could figure out how to solve that problem. So let's figure out something that's bothering you right now. Oh, you're never getting a turn in class? Okay, then let's practice. Let's brainstorm what else you could do instead. And then when your child comes up with a solution, then let's practice the solution. Let's role play it. Okay, now I'll be Johnny and you say, I'd like a turn to Johnny. The simple little things like that. So you choose it. That's the second superpower. See how it goes? You're teaching along the way through an enjoyable concept of reading the book together. Your child's stepping into the shoes of the character, just like Julia said, and he's learning superpowers along the way.
This is really fun, and I'm imagining back when my kids were young, what a fun time this would have been, practicing the breathing and the brainstorming. And it's certainly that brainstorming is something that I did with my kids a whole lot. And it's such an effective, it's so effective when they come up with the solution to the problem instead of getting it from you.
Exactly. And too often what we do, back to what you were talking on bubble wrapping, is we rob the child of resilience by giving them the answer. What we've got to do is convey to the child, hey, sweetie pie, there's no problem so great that can't be solved. You're just going to storm your brain. And someplace in there, if you shake your head a lot, you'll come up with the answer. So let's figure out what works for you, not for mommy or daddy or brother or sister. But those are the kinds of powers. And then you can do them in the carpool. You can do them in the park. You can do them while you're sitting at breakfast. The more you practice it, the more your child feels comfortable doing without you. And that's what resilience is all about.
Yeah. Julia, how did you two team up together to put this book into the world?
We had met on several occasions through conferences and just hi bye. And then I have about just under 100 children's books, and they all do something. And I wanted the guru for resilience because, I can spin any words into kid words, but I need the expert in that area. And nobody does that better in this country, probably in this world for kids, than Borba, because she did Thrivers and she's written The Unselfie, and she just has a corner on the market of the nuts and bolts of resiliency. So why not go for the best? And so I knew, we knew some common people, and they reached out and said, Julia wants an expert to, partner with her on this book. And so we decided to get together, and her guru-ness and my kid jargon, and we just put it together. It was really fun.
Oh my gosh. Everybody should write a book with Julia Cook. It was absolutely the most incredibly wonderful experience. And then the best thing is we're reading it to kids and they love it. They're really appreciative of it and think that it applies to them, and that's exactly what you want. But you got to listen to Julia. Julia, take any one of those 6 traits, the superpowers,
when you breathe,
come up with your words.
Breathe in deep and count to 2. Breathe out and count to 4. Breathe in as much air as you can, and then breathe out even more.
There you go. See?
It rhymes. And when we do those bounce back superpowers, they rhyme. And so it's just kind of one of those, I got this. Oh, I got this. It's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And the title of that book, I Got This, is actually because it's the highest level of resilience. It's a child who has agency, who says, I got it, Mom. I can do this, because you've taught him the skill. You don't want a child who's always going, what should I do? I don't know what to do. That's a child who's got very low confidence and isn't going to be able to step in. He's going to be stepping back. So I Got This was the perfect thing for the title of the book.
The third one is, take the T out of can't. If you have the word can't, talk back to your I can't worry. Michelle always says, take that T out of can't. If you cross the T out of can't, you have I can. And then the fourth one is chunk it up and make a big problem smaller. And then the fifth one is ask for help. We didn't start out with ask for help because we want our kids to go through a series of what they can try to do first and then ask for help. And then the last one, of course, is, look how far you've come. And if you're about ready to give up because you're just done, take a break, recharge, take a little nap. But when you're facing something that's a challenge and you're spent, you need to replenish your resources before you try to go on. So they were really strategically planned in the order, and chunk it is just a cool, chunk it. And I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, when you get a big problem, you chunk it up into little chunks. And I was like, I love chunk it. Let's use chunk it, so it was fun.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious that you both had a blast creating this book, and I'm sure that's going to come through on the pages. And I'm guessing, Dr. Michelle, that the same excitement that Julia is showing as she's sharing this with us, that's the kind of excitement you expect parents to have when they're reading this book with you.
Oh, yes. It's an answer. I mean, one of the things that I work with parents all over the world, and the top question is, what can I do? I think what we've got is parenting manuals that go off on teaching how to bathe the kid and how to feed the child, but not how do you raise the bounce back child who's going to be able to handle this new world. And they're so grateful to know there are things we can do. And we wait too late. Most of these things we teach to adults or teens. Let's start teaching them to younger children. And then we just keep adding and adding and adding the bounce back powers. And now we've got a generation of kids who are going to be strong from the inside out. And that's what we want. I love that chunk it. But I love I've got this, because too often when children keep saying the negative, I can't do it, it's too hard, I'm going to flunk, I'm just going to make another mistake. They say that what we don't realize far more internally than they do externally. So if you've got a child who's saying that a little bit and you're hearing it, imagine what they're saying inside to their mind. But how wonderful research tells us, if we plant a new phrase and we keep saying it to the child over and over again, or we say it ourselves when we blow it, that's okay, I got this, I'll try again. What we're actually doing is modeling so that our children are hearing our voice until our voice becomes their voice, and then they can say it inside their head. It's okay, I got this. How great is that?
Yeah. Well, as you're talking about this, and I absolutely agree with you, and I'm so proud of my now adult kids, because that's the kind of attitude that they have. They've both run into issues, and they've both dealt with them wonderfully. But I'm hearing about these kids that are in college these days, and they need trigger warnings and safe spaces. And if they hear an idea that doesn't align perfectly with theirs, it's like, no, I need to run and hide. Someone needs to save me from that. What can we do for those kids?
Well, the interesting thing is the reason I wrote Thrivers was because I was talking to college presidents who were saying exactly what you said. So you're now looking at, can you imagine major universities from Yale to Harvard to Stanford who are doing 1-week crash courses before kids start school on how do you teach resilience to a college freshman? I'm going, why are we waiting so late? But university professors are seeing it. There are risk-averse kids, and they're calling them excellent sheep. What we've got to do is help them from a much earlier age realize you can do this by teaching them these skills. And as a result, they're going to be able to handle the tough things and not need to be bubble wrapped and feeling like you have to be safe in order to live.
Yeah.
If you do it through an enjoyable experience, that's a win.
Yeah.
That's the caveat right there, is that, you create it so that they don't have to, and they want to, so yeah.
Julia, it seems that you were the kind of engine that drove this project. How did that happen? Was it that you had read Dr. Michelle's book, and you said,
cover to cover, and then
this?
Yeah, cover to cover, but then, she knows exactly the messages that you want the kids to take away. So she would say, okay, we came up with the bounce back superpowers, and then we started thinking about, some kind of a scenario. It's like, well, you could be dragging and then we thought about a rescue dog, and basically he was rescued as a puppy. So he wants to be a rescue dog too. For his test he has to pass, he has to pull the sled all the way to the top of the mountain. And he asked the eagle, do you think I can do it? The eagle says, well, doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what you believe in yourself. In order to get there, you're going to have to use your bounce back superpowers. I have superpowers? Not yet, but you will. How do I get them? Well, I'll teach them to you along the way. And that's how it starts. And, it's kind of one of those, we have mountains in our world and we have challenges, and the mountain symbolizes every challenge that a person has. And of course, it starts snowing in the middle of the mountain, and they didn't plan on that, because every challenge you have has storms. So every ounce of that book is symbolic for what we go through when we have an issue and we're trying to figure out how to get through it and solve it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how fun it was writing that book together? Oh, gosh, it was just amazing.
I can tell.
We laughed more than we wrote, though.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Well, it's obvious that there's great chemistry between the two of you. Are we going to have a follow-up project? Are we working on a new?
Someone asked me, could you do a book on every superpower, just on that superpower? I haven't even asked Michelle that, so I don't know. I mean, that'd be sure fun. Gosh, Michelle, that'd be 5 trips up here to the lake.
Oh my gosh, well, then we ought to come up with at least 20 superpowers if that's going to be the buy-in. She lives in a place that's heaven by a lake.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, you heard it here, folks. Popular demand. They got to get back together and come back to celebrate 20 more books. In the meantime, where should we go to find out? First, Julia, where should we go to find out more about not only I Got This, but your other children's books?
JuliaCookOnline.com, or I just launched a website called Cookie Bites by Julia, and it's full of ideas for parents and activities for parents and read-alouds of every story by me that I've written. It's, real reasonably priced. You can cancel anytime. It's just a really fun thing. It's called Cookie Bites by Julia, and then you can look at all my books under the titles and topics part of my website at JuliaCookOnline.com.
Awesome. And Dr. Michelle, where can we go to find out more about you?
You can go to MichelleBorba.com. I'm a 1L Michelle, and I always say that Borba rhymes with Zorba. So there you go. And you'll find on that one similar things to Julia. There are dozens of little videotapes, like 3 minutes max. So if you want more information, watch the tape or some of my TED Talks that you can figure out. Our goal, Julia and my goal, is to give parents practical, simple things that you can do. Just find the one that works for you. Don't just teach it once. Don't just tell it once. Do it over and over again and model it yourself. And that's the best way to teach any of these skills.
I love that. Model it, because there are a lot of anxious parents out there.
Yeah.
And,
kids speak, actions will speak a lot louder than words. That's just very true. So
absolutely.
Remember the 6 things: see it, hear it, feel it, do it, show it to somebody else, and relate it to something you already know. That's what our kids need to learn.
Amen. Amen. I think all of us can agree that parents, if you're listening out there, you got this.
That's right.
We've had a great time speaking to the authors of I Got This, Julia Cook and Dr. Michelle Borba. My friends, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. A pleasure.
Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. Join us from the beautiful city of York in Pennsylvania. Our guest is here to bring a little bit of Christmas in June or July. She is here to celebrate Cora's Christmas Challenge. Please welcome to the show, Sally Keshner. Sally, how are you?
Hi, Jed. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. It is a beautiful day here in Boston, and even though the sun is shining and it's nice and warm, who doesn't want to talk about Christmas and all the joy that it brings?
Well, I'm hoping that there will be some people who are interested in Christmas in July.
Yeah. Well, let's tell them all about Cora and what her Christmas challenge is all about.
Okay, so my story is Cora's Christmas Challenge, and it's about a little girl who wants to do something special for Christmas. So this little girl, Cora, loves adventure more than anything, and her mother suggests a Christmas adventure, a Christmas challenge. And her challenge is to share kindness, make a new friend, and spread the joy of Christmas. So that's the challenge for Cora on a beautiful wintry Christmas day, and so she sets off to meet that challenge.
Yeah. That is a wonderful challenge for all of us to give to our kids and also give to ourselves.
Yes, and I think that this is not just for kids. It looks at what is the meaning of Christmas. And so that's kind of what she discovers on her journey. What do we think of Christmas as? And she thinks of it as having fun and sledding and building snowmen. And then she starts to think, well, I'm really having a great time doing all of this, but how do I really share kindness and how do I make a new friend? Because she's just a kid. How do I do that? And I think it's important for kids to think about that. How can I make a new friend? Because friendship's so important, friendship building. And then how do I spread the real joy of Christmas?
You know, as you were speaking, and especially when you said the sentence, how do I make a new friend? It flashed back to me. I grew up in an inner city neighborhood in Boston, and we were there for my whole childhood. And so making a friend was never something I had to worry about because I grew up with the same people, and half the people in my neighborhood were my cousins anyways. And, so I never thought about that. And then I went to a high school that was outside of my neighborhood, and I distinctly remember, how do I make a new friend? Just because it wasn't, we were just all friends automatically. We were friends forever. And I guess I made new friends, but
and things like that have changed a little bit, especially a lot of these kids who have gone through COVID and they stayed at home and they didn't necessarily have that network of friends, and suddenly your mom and your dad were teaching you things when you couldn't go to school. And not only were they the teachers, but it's at some point for some people, it became their best friend. They became their friend. And so I think that transition is still really hard for a lot of those kids. So a lot of those kids now are going into college. They had to go back to school, back to middle school, high school, on to college. And that wasn't a thing I think that was easy for kids. It didn't come naturally anymore to everybody. So I think a big part of it is, how do you build friendships? How does that happen? And how can you make that happen?
Yeah, such an important thing to think about. And especially now, you mentioned COVID and virtual learning, but also families are much more mobile now. You know, the idea that, it was a big deal when somebody moved out of our neighborhood because it was such a rare event. But nowadays, people are moving. Kids are probably moving 2 or 3 times in their childhood.
And with reading, I think it's really important to think of all of those things. And when you're trying to encourage kids to read, that they're not all just sitting around in a nice, cozy home. Sometimes they're out traveling. I think it's really important to meet them where they are. And so whether that's a book or an ebook or an audio book, or however you can reach those kids, I think it's really important to look at those alternate sources.
Absolutely.
Now, my book does have an audiobook. It's read by my daughter-in-law. So the reading in our family is like a family affair. So it really reaches out to everybody across 3 generations. So what I mentioned was, my daughter-in-law she does read. She narrates books. She's narrated over 1,500 middle grade books. Wow. And she narrates my book. So that was really very fun. And so we're hoping that by giving an audiobook as an option, it's more accessible to a wider audience, because we do have kids who are auditory learners, and they absorb that information through listening, and they engage in that way. So there were different things that I tried to do with this book, so we would reach more people and more different learning styles.
Yeah. Well, you're looking at an auditory learner here. I definitely, audiobooks are the way that I consume most of my books these days. And it's wonderful. And it's wonderful to listen to an audiobook in the car with your kids as you're traveling. It's a nice alternative to always listening to the same pop music that's on. It's a great way to get kids to shut off the screens and just, do what my grandfather did, which was, gather around the radio, and everybody listened to the radio because there was no TV.
Yeah, and when you were an auditory learner growing up, was that frowned upon a little bit? Because I remember growing up, and people thought you weren't paying attention if you weren't taking notes. And you were trying to process it through hearing.
Yeah.
And sometimes schools really focused more on the visual and reading, the reading portion of it.
Yeah. Well, I know there are probably a lot of reasons why people didn't appreciate my learning style when I was a kid. So I know if I can't blame that. But I know myself, there were a lot of times when I would have to read aloud to myself to be able to get what I was reading on the page.
Yeah, and I was a teacher, a high school English teacher. I'm retired now, but you can sometimes see those auditory learners moving their lips. And when I was growing up, that was kind of frowned upon. You didn't do that, but that helped me determine which kids were auditory learners, so that you don't come in with this preconceived idea, oh, they're not taking notes, so they're not paying attention. But that's how they learn. That's how they learn best.
Right. Yeah. I'm happy that we're hopefully getting to the point where teachers and educators are truly embracing the reality that people are different learners and there are different styles. And I think our goal should be to change the way we're teaching kids and to meet their needs instead of having them pop a pill so they can sit still in the classroom and learn the way everybody's quote-unquote supposed to learn.
Right. And in addition to the learning styles, being able to use technology, because when I was in teaching and there was a lot of technology being introduced all at the same time, and kids were bringing their cell phones in and using cell phones. I remember one day in class, there was a kid on his phone, and I immediately went to, oh, well, they're just texting their friends. So when I pointed it out, he was reading Julius Caesar on his telephone. Well, that was a lesson for me to think about different ways to use technology. And I was an older teacher, but I was really interested in technology. So I was the one who first sent kids home with their homework on a QR code and things like that. And I really did try to reach them where they were, and they just thought that was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a lot of kids doing their homework.
Yeah, that's wonderful, wonderful. You know, it works, and looking at the world in a different perspective works. And, you know, you are kind of demonstrating that right now, because here you are and you're sharing a little bit of Christmas in July. You're not doing a traditional thing where you're launching a Christmas book in October, but right before Christmas. It's in July. What were you thinking about? Was it just, I'm so excited, I want to get this out as soon as possible? Or was there a deeper strategy?
Yeah, what was I thinking? Well, here's what I was thinking. You know, they say statistically that 80% of Americans say they've got a story to tell. And I think it's probably even higher than that. I think everybody has a story to tell. And they just don't start for some reason. And honestly, I was in my 70s till I wrote my story down. So there's still time for everybody out there. There's still time for those 80% of people who want to write their book. So I had a lot of ideas, and I thought, oh, now's probably a good time. So I wrote this story, and I happened to come across online April Cox, and April Cox does a lot of YouTube stuff, and she had a class. She has a company, Little Labradoodle Publishing, and she gives several courses, and she does a course on advertising and marketing. She does a class called, the one that I saw was the 90-Day Way, and April Cox says, you come with a story, and you can start this class, and in 90 days, I will help you publish that book. So I saw that at the end of last year, so it started in January. So that's kind of where the timing comes in. And in 90 days, she takes you through the steps on how to publish your book. Because honestly, the writing of it, that I found out was a small part. So when I had my story written, I thought, aha, my story's ready. And everybody's going to want to read and look at my story. But it was a little more complicated than I thought it was going to be. So till you go through an editor and you go through the illustrations, finding an illustrator, doing all that, because the illustrations were 50% of the book. And till you get into then a designer and you publish it, it took every bit of the 90 days. So the people in my class, we were at times challenged to meet that deadline.
Yeah.
So kind of timing-wise, that's kind of where it all shook out.
Okay. And now, of course, now that the book is just about out there, you're discovering that you need to put a new hat on and become a marketing director.
Yeah, and that's kind of, for some people, a lot of people, something not necessarily something that they like to do or they want to do or even that they're good at. So that's kind of a whole new thing that I'm looking into now, like how to market it and where to put it and how to do Amazon ads and that type of thing. So that was something unexpected. I figured I'll throw a few Amazon ads at it and it'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, we're really happy that you discovered April and that you had the courage to share your story. Are you intending for this to be a series? Are we going to see Cora involved in other adventures?
Yes, actually, I have one in illustration right now, and that's fun. The illustration part, I do think, is tons of fun. To see that all come to life and 50% of the story being told through the illustrations and the colors and things like that. So the book that is in production right now is called Cora's Garden Rescue. And then I also have another one written, but I'm waiting to get underway more with the second one. And the second one is Cora's Magic Melodies. So it's a story about music. So there's second one is the Garden Rescue that's coming, and then the Magic Melodies about music. And then I have two more coming right behind there. So after that, I think I will slow down and kind of take a breath after that.
Wonderful. Well, we should tell
So those are the things.
We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Cora's Christmas Challenge and get on a mailing list so they can be the first to know when the other books come out.
Oh, well, thank you. So she's on Amazon and Ingram Spark right now. And also there are supplementary materials with that. So I have an activity and coloring book. And as I said, she's in an ebook and an audiobook. And then I also have a teaching guide with that. So I think it's really important to extend the reading, extend the fun and the reading. So a teaching guide, not a teacher guide, because I was going to call it a teacher guide. And then I thought, well, it's not just for teachers, it's for anyone. And aren't we all teachers? Mm-hmm. Aren't you a teacher? Mm-hmm. You don't have to have that teaching certificate. So many people are teaching our kids. So Absolutely. It's a teaching guide with activities in that. So that they're all coming out within the next couple weeks.
And will they be on a website that people can visit?
Yes, it's Cora Can Collection. So part of the saying or the motto or the basic theme of all the books is Cora can do this and you can too. So it's the Cora Can Collection. So in each book, for example, the first one, as we talked about, Cora can build friendship. She can figure this out. And you know what? You can do that too. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what each book does. She takes a challenge and she meets it. And some of these challenges aren't earth-shattering. They're kind of everyday things that kids might encounter. But you know what? You can do that. She can do it. And look at her. And you can do it too. So it's the CoraCanCollection.com.
Wonderful. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Cora's Christmas Challenge. Our guest has been Sally Kashner. Sally, thanks for bringing a little bit of Christmas to our summer.
Well, thank you for having me, Jed, and thank you for everything you're doing for authors, but especially for what you're doing for kids and parents. And I'm just so happy that I was able to be a small part of it.
Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us right now from Houston in the great state of Texas. Our guest is here today to celebrate her beautiful children's book. It's called Frances Flamingo, Prima Ballerina. Please welcome to the show, Dottie Lee. Hey, Dottie, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here and meet you.
I'm delighted to have you on. I understand that this is the day that the Spanish version of your book debuts.
Yes, it is. I'm very excited. The English version was so well received that I had requests to release it in Spanish. So today's the day. Yay!
Excellent, excellent. So tell us about Frances Flamingo.
Well, Frances Flamingo is a very curious flamingo flying on, migrating to some warm weather. But she's very distracted, and a storm kind of blows her out of her flock, and now she's lost. Where am I going? And she looks down and she sees, a big cluster of pink on the ground, and she says, "There they are! All right, and here's my family." But when she gets there, she doesn't find her family. She finds ballerinas in pink tutus, and they invite her to join them at their dance class. But she's so worried. Am I too tall? Am I too pink? Will I fit in? But her friends reassure her that she is just perfect the way she is in her flamingo way. And she tries on new steps. She doesn't execute them perfectly each time. And she has a little mishap along the way. But with the encouragement, she turns out to be the prima ballerina of her class.
Well, that sounds like a delightful story.
Well, thank you. I'm a former, well, not so much former, but still a ballerina teacher. And my background is ballet. And many of my students, I would show them a new step. And particularly, I teach some who have neurological challenges and some disabilities. But they can always do it. You can always do it. There is a way to do it. And they went, "Oh, I can't do this. I can't do this." And they want to stop. And like, I just convinced them it's not hard. It's just new. Yeah. Remember the step we did last week that you didn't think you could do? Now look at you. Oh, yeah. And that kind of moves them on. Yeah, but with that theme, it's not only children. Adults have that same situation. I know adults in my life that they're so gifted at so many things that when the one thing comes by that's kind of hard, they want to put it aside. Mm-hmm. They don't want to struggle with it. And it's just, we all need that encouragement. So I'm thinking even the parents that are reading these stories to their children might find that example that, oh yeah, maybe it's just hard. It's not hard. It's just new.
Yeah. I really like that. One of the things that we've celebrated here, and it certainly has come in handy with me in trying to inspire my kids and my niece, is getting the idea that you can't use the word can't unless you say yet afterwards. So if you're trying something and, I don't want to hear I can't do it, but I'm perfectly happy to hear I can't do it yet, just to, make sure that the kids keep going. But I love this too. It's not hard. It's just new.
And these children, they put so much pressure on themselves, and I think they compare themselves to their teachers, their parents, and it looks so easy to see someone else do it who's been doing it for the last 45 years, and when they can't do it just like that, it discourages them. They just don't know. They just have to be taught.
Yeah. Dance has been such a big part of my life, not that I'm a ballerina at all. My first introduction to dance was when I was working at a school for kids with severe developmental disabilities. And my job was to integrate them into typical activities so they had a chance to make friends with typical kids. And not that there's really any typical kids, but that was the missions, get the kids out into the community and help them develop friendship. And one of the classes that this one young woman in particular took part in was a ballet class taught by Boston Ballet. And that was an awful lot of fun. And then that young woman actually was the reason I met my beautiful wife and we had a beautiful family. And my daughter, who had a lot of extra energy when she was 2.5, and we had to get her somewhere where she could, get rid of some of that energy. We enrolled her in a ballet class at 2.5, kind of fibbed as how old she was, and she loved it. And for the next 16, 17 years, it was a huge part of her life, and she's still dancing to this day. And, of course, when she was young, I was taking her to dance class and helping her on with her tutu and her ballet shoes and later her point shoes and driving her everywhere and being part of the dad-daughter dance things. And dance is such a wonderful, wonderful activity for everybody, but especially for kids.
And it's not just the dance, it's the music that goes along with it. This kind of calms your soul. Your body is moving with the music. It makes you a lifelong lover of music that goes along with dance. I might not know the lyrics to every song, but I recognize the song because to me, as a dancer, I know the beats and measures and whatever. Yeah. It's not so important to me, the lyrics, but that music stays with you forever.
Yeah. And one of the things that I don't think enough people understand is that ballet in particular, but dance is fantastic exercise.
Well, it is. In many ways, I've had many children of Houston sports teams in my class because they know the benefit of the agility training, the timing, all of those things that are important. Even if you're going to be good in sports, you can't fall down all over yourself running down that field.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. What is it? How did you get into dance?
It was my mother.
Mm-hmm.
She had piano lessons all her life, and she wanted to be a dancer and decided her daughter was going to be a dancer. So that's how I started dance, and I loved it. I stayed in it forever. Yeah. I started when I was 5, and I danced at the Boston Ballet, took classes there for a while. Then I got to be that age, and I went to school in Boston for college, and been dancing ever since. I've had a studio for probably 40 years, but who's counting?
Tell us where we can go to find out more about Frances Flamingo, prima ballerina, and also find out more about you.
Well, you can go to my website, the.lee.com. And I'm on all social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Wonderful.
And I just want everyone to know that it's never too late to do what's in your heart to do. I published my first book at 77. And people, you should be retired. Well, I am retired. I'm doing something that I absolutely love. And I'm getting out to meet people, and I'm feeling so fulfilled. So my lesson for everyone is, if something is in your heart, follow it.
That's wonderful, guys. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Frances Flamingo, prima ballerina. Our guest has been Dottie Lee. Dottie, thanks for being here and inspiring us.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and we hope it inspired you to join us for the next exciting episode of the show. We also hope it inspired you to write a review of the show, a 5-star review of the show, where you can put on any podcasting platform you're listening to the show from. And if you're listening on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, please let the folks at your local station know that you love Reading with Your Kids. I would love to connect with you on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at JedleyMagic on X. We also have a fantastic YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. You can find all of our STEM is Family Fun videos on our YouTube channel. You can also find our Drawing with Your Kids video on our YouTube channel, and you can find episodes of the podcast. So check it out today. And, of course, if you're looking to discover past episodes of Reading with Your Kids, please be sure to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. On that landing page, We have a big button there where you can go and find all 2,000 plus episodes of Reading with Your Kids. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we start by thanking our guests. Dr. Michelle Borba, Julia Cook, Dottie Lee, Sally Kashner. I want to thank my amazing team, and they are amazing. Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Judy Hu, Stella Sheree, Hannah Bosange, Alyssa Montiero, Devin Hill, Riley Oluwu. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.